Good afternoon. Hi, it's Jason Lipfeld. It's Friday afternoon. It's May. It's really warm outside, but we're here together on a Friday afternoon for the Hostos Student Leadership Academy Friday Ambassador Workshop Series. I'm glad that you could join us. In all likelihood, this will probably be the last remote workshop that we do. After 3 years of doing it, I want to thank everybody who has joined us over the last 3 years for these workshops and kept us going. And even our presenters who've done extraordinary work with our students in this very challenging environment. But the world is changing back, getting back to some semblance of normalcy. And so I hope in the fall we'll be back together in person doing these workshops. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing somebody that joined us for the first time last year and made a great impression on the students who are participating in that workshop. He has a great background and a great skill set. He's also a CUNY grad, so he has some reference points for some of you who are going to graduate soon or down the road. And so it's my privilege, my honor to introduce Tim Duffy with this workshop, which you can see on the screen. I'm going to let Tim do the whole spiel, and I'll step out of the way.
Thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate you very much and for your lovely introduction. So for those of you who don't know a little bit about me, let me just kind of give a brief overview. I have been doing leadership training and coaching for almost 18 years now. So when I was in college, Queens College, City University of New York, I was a very active student leader attending workshops just like the ones that you are attending right now, and I love them. And I'm like, I want more. And suddenly I got the attention of the student government. They said, Tim, you should run for student government. I'm like, I don't even know if I have enough credits to even run for student government. I'm a sophomore. And so I ended up running. I was one of the youngest student government presidents to serve. Here was the thing. I had great mentors. You have great mentors like Jason, but I had additional mentors, people who have done leadership development for over 30 years, were student leaders themselves. And as a result, I was very teachable. And because of that, I followed their advice. And as a result, I won several awards for our accomplishments. And I say our accomplishments because, again, I had a whole team that was with me that I helped manage and coach and support. And so I'm very grateful to that recognition. I got the CUNY Leadership Award twice in a row. So I was very, very grateful for that. After college, I majored in environmental science, geology. I have a Bachelor of Science and a minor in business. But my passion was really helping develop leaders, but I'm like, I need to do something with my degree. You know, I studied environmental science. What am I going to do? Like, let me go into government somehow. So I did an internship with the EPA, trying to get businesses to voluntarily be more sustainable without regulation. Then I ended up doing another job working in government. I was a legislative aide to a councilman here in Port Washington, that's out in New York on Long Island. And all the time while I did that, I kept going back to my college and training the student leaders because I just loved it. And so one of my mentors was Gary Turak, the founder of the National Society of Leadership and Success. And he says, Tim, you were such a great student president when you started your own chapter of NSLS. Why don't you work for us and we can help grow this organization? And I'm like, well, I'm kind of bored working in government. You know, I started to realize that government's all about who has the money and whether you can run for office or not, and a lot of lobbying. So again, I got to see how the sausage was made in government. So that was kind of interesting. So I'm like, why not? Let's follow my passion. And I worked for NSLS for 12 years, and we helped grow that organization to become the largest collegiate leadership society, where it has now over 700 chapters, over 1 million members. And so I rose throughout the whole company. I served on the executive leadership team. I did sales. I did account management, managed over 40 employees, over 600 interns. I ran the speaker broadcast. Some of these famous people that you've seen, you know, I got to interview them about leadership and success. Common, who's a famous actor, hip hop artist, Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad, Mel Robbins, Alexis Jones, Alton Brown from the Food Network. So I got to really learn from all these different people how to be successful, how to be a leader. And then after 12 years, there was nothing else for me to do. I needed a new challenge. So I started to serve as a COO of two startup companies. And that was, wow, very, very tough, very, very hard. And then I ended up right now, I'm currently the president of my own company, just a little S corporation, Duffy Leadership Incorporated, where I do trainings like the one I'm doing right now for all of you. I also do executive coaching. But one of my passion, in what I volunteer my time is I created a leadership organization called Electa Society. And it's a free membership leadership society, really meant to help create the next generation of active, motivated, and engaged leaders. And it's just my way of giving back. I'd have a bunch of trainings online, and once a month I might do a training about some leadership topic or book for the entire community. So you're all more than welcome to look it up online and check it out if that's something you're interested in. So what are we going to be talking about? The biggest challenge leaders face and mastering success habits. So here's what you're going to walk away with in this presentation. You're going to answer the question, what is the biggest challenge leaders face? And I'll tell you what I think. I also want to get some insight from all of you. What is the most important question or questions you should ask yourself when doing a task? How to say no with disappointing others. I don't know if all of you are very similar to me. When I was in college, sometimes I don't want to say no to people because I just don't want to disappoint them. And so how can I do it in a very diplomatic way to stay focused on what I really want to get accomplished? And then we'll have a discussion about your tips on management, and I'll give you my suggestions. And then I'm going to do a life-changing exercise for all of you. So this is not just you hearing my voice and say, oh, that was kind of nice. That was really motivated. It's like, no, if you want to be successful, if you want to be a successful leader, you have to do these exercises, and this will really make a difference. And then we're going to talk about the traits of the most successful people in the world. We're going to talk about one of the most important leadership qualities that all leaders must have. And I'm going to give you a different definition that most people don't talk about. And then, like we all do, we sometimes screw up, and that's okay. But how do we gain credibility instantly when we screwed up? How would leaders do it? So that's what I want to teach you. And you're going to learn that all today in the next less than an hour and a half. So let's start a little discussion. So what do all of you think is the biggest challenge leaders face? So why don't you either raise your digital hand, and I want to have you share, or if you don't feel like speaking up, you could always post it in the chat. What do you guys think the biggest challenge leaders face? I want to hear some people. Any thoughts? Don't be shy. Go ahead.
I'd say cooperation.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more about that. In order, a leader is running like an organization or team. It's like, how do I get all the people to cooperate or be on the same page? Is that right?
Yeah, and then it's also like a whole thing of like some people just don't listen to authority, so it's a lot harder to get, cooperation. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So you have an idea, you want to share it, and they're like, I have my own idea. So it's like, how do I get them to, get along with this when they want to do their own thing? Okay, great. Who else? What other stuff do you think? Okay, I'm seeing the comments. Leighton, great to see you and hear from you. Bad current events that catch them surprised. Yeah, that could be a big challenge, right? There's a negative event, and suddenly that was something that wasn't anticipated. Kimberly, you said learning how to properly take care of the people who they are leading. Yeah, it's like, all right, I want to help them, but I want to take care of them. I have a sense of responsibility. So are they doing their best? How can I help them do their best? Okay. Casey, you wrote being unbiased is also one, not showing favorites. Yeah, there are some people who are in your team that they're awesome and they do everything and you want to appreciate them, but what about the other people? Are they going to get jealous or feel neglected? Okay, I understand that. Sounds good. Showing humility. Thanks, Kobe. I think absolutely that is going to be a big challenge, right? We're in a position of leadership. We're the head honcho. So it's like, how can I be humble and know that I don't have all the answers? Okay. Well, I think these are all absolutely great challenges that people and leaders face. Now, when it comes to them, whether it is, communicating with your team, whether it's getting them excited and engaged, being humble, being able to listen to their ideas when you have your own ideas. guess what? All of these things are accurate. Oh, if you're being unbiased, it takes conversations with different people, right? In the end, you are only going to be able to do those things if what? You actually have time. And so that is what, and this is a snapshot of the image of the famous Broadway play Hamilton. If any of you seen it, it's one of my favorite Broadway shows. And what was the main theme of Hamilton? We could have done so much more if we only had time. You see, everything that all of you just shared are different challenges leaders face, right? Events happen that we didn't anticipate. But guess what? If you actually have time, you can work with those people, you can talk with those people, you can motivate. But most of the leaders that I have ever worked with, and most any working professional, if you can't master this, then you're not going to be able to be a successful leader. Okay. And let's talk about that a little bit more. So it's story time. I'm going to share with you a story about when I was working for the National Society of Leadership and Success. And one of the things that we did is students wanted to start chapters of the organization. So in order to start a chapter, you would have to do an internship with us, and you'd have to, commit to doing certain action steps, finding an executive board, finding an advisor, registering as a student organization, or finding some department to sponsor you, and things like that. So as you can tell, we tried to hire the best of the best in student leaders, figuring out who is really, really good. This one has this much experience. So again, there's this student, and let's just call his name Brian. That's not really his name because I want to respect his confidentiality. So Brian was an amazing leader, right? Very active in different clubs and organizations and different leadership positions. So I'm his mentor, manager. I'm meeting up with him, and he says, okay, next week I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, great. All right, let's have a 1 week check-in meeting and we'll see how it goes. So 1 week passes. And what do you think happened when I connected with Brian? He basically said, oh, Tim, I'm so sorry. I got so busy. I had classes and I have exams. As you know, I'm trying to get a 4.0 on my GPA, and it's just all these different tests. So, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll definitely do it this upcoming week. And I'm like, okay, I understand things happen, emergencies come up. All right, sounds good. All right, so do you know what you need to do? Do you need any help or support? He's like, no, it was just this week. I totally got it, Tim. I'll get it done. So another week happens, and guess what happens? He still didn't do his action steps. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Tim. I was pulling all-nighters. I didn't get enough sleep, but there was just so much going on. You have no idea. And I said, okay, listen, Brian, we have to have a serious talk. Now, I'm not here to yell at you or get mad at you. I'm your manager. I'm your mentor. I want you to think of me as your cheerleader. Okay. I want you to be successful, And so I said, but I'm also your manager. And I just wanted to ask you, if we were in a corporation or some kind of company and we hired you, and your boss asked you to do X, Y, and Z, and you didn't do it the first time, and then you promise to do it and you don't do it again, what do you think would happen to you? He's like, I think they'd be really upset. And I said, really upset? I think you're actually being too kind. I think you might actually get fired, right? It depends on how compassionate your boss is going to be. So I said, listen, in order for you to, succeed, we have to tackle this time management thing, because if you can't do this, we're not going to be able to do anything else. And so we're gonna do an activity. And he's like, okay, I'll do this activity with you. And I said, and guess what? All of you who are watching this webinar, we're going to do this activity together, because if you at any point identify with Brian, well, this is an activity that's going to really help you. So we started going through the list of all his things on his plate, right? What are all his obligations? What are all the things that we do? And so I started guiding him on how to actually master this topic of time. So the first thing that I had to ask him is, all right, we need to help you, Brian, master prioritization, okay? And I know that all of you who are listening to this training, you probably have already heard, oh yeah, is this a priority? Is this a priority? Well, this is really difficult for a lot of people to manage, is because guess what? everything that you're doing on your schedule right now in your life is you're probably doing it because it's a priority to you, right? However, it might not be the most important priority. You may be interested and you may like it, but it may not be serving you. So, for example, with Brian, he was involved with all these different clubs and organizations. And let's just say he was the president of the chess club. And I said, so, hey, Brian, how long have you been president of the chess club? He's like, oh, this is my second year that I'm doing it. And I'm like, well, you were already president the first year. Why are you doing it the second year? And he's like, my advisor asked me to do it again because there wasn't really a lot of people to get and serve in the position. And because I did it before, I really know how it works. So it was very easy. So I was happy to do it. And I said, yeah, but let me tell you something. In fact, I said, let me ask you something. You have gained all these skills of being a president of the chess club. You've added it to your resume. All right. But by doing it again, is it adding anything else to your resume? And he's like, no, not really. So I said, in the end, you've gotten the juice out of it. Okay. Now it's time for you to pass that baton to somebody else, because you should be doing yourself a favor by doing things that are in alignment with your career goals. So that's the question you have to ask yourself. Is this task alignment with my career goals? Is it essential? Am I learning and growing from it? Are you learning and growing from this being president of the chess club again? And he's like, no, not really, but I can just do it really fast. I can do it very quickly. And this is when I burst his bubble, and I'm going to burst it all for you. Okay. I said, listen, Brian, I have to confess something to you. You may not know this, and this may be a harsh truth, but I'm going to give it to you straight because I'm your mentor. I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. You are probably doing a disservice to your chess club. He's like, what do you mean, Tim? I said, you just took on this responsibility of this internship with our organization, and you're already failing at it. Okay. I would go out on a limb that says that you are already failing at the chess club. Now, you might say, oh, I'm still doing what I need to do. But I said, but guess what? You're probably doing the bare minimum because your biggest challenge is time, right? And he's like, yeah, you're right. And I said, well, not only are you doing a disservice to the organization, you're trying to help out your advisor, right? You're doing him a favor. You're just trying to, help him out, but you're not doing the job to the best of your own ability. And I said, here is a second, mind blowing opportunity. Okay. Can you handle it? I'm going to give you straight talk. And he's like, I can handle it, Tim. Okay. I'm like, here it goes. You, by running again as the president of this organization, have done another disservice to this organization. He's like, Tim, oh my goodness, you're beating me up. And I'm like, no, I'm just talking to you straight. I'm like, it's coming from love. Like, don't get mad. I said, you already served as president. So you now had that experience, and there could have been another person who could have had that experience by being the president. So you took that opportunity away from them. You deprived them of adding it to their resume. And that was like, whoa, mind blown, goosebump moment. And I said, so my advice or my invitation is for you to take that off your plate. He's like, but Tim, I don't want to disappoint my advisor. I already got a commitment that I was going to serve again. And I said, well, then you have to master the skill about, getting stuff off your plate. You're overcommitted. You have to tell no to your advisor. And there's going to be a way that I'm going to teach you on how to say no. But listen, you're overcommitted right now. You need to get stuff off your plate. And I said, the other question that you should ask yourself is, should somebody else with more time and skill be doing this task? Now, in the case with Brian, he had the best skill because he had already done president. So again, that wouldn't apply to him, but he would actually have giving this position to somebody else who might have more time could actually do a better job. So if you had somebody who had the great skill, but no time and only did the bare minimum, could do maybe a decent job, but a person with some skill and a lot more time could be even doing a much better job. So again, and you can actually train them, and that gives you more leadership skills. You can add that to your resume that you actually mentored and trained somebody to take after you. And so now it was starting to sink in: prioritization, reduce your overcommitment. And I said, here's something that I wanted to teach all of you. Okay, I've worked with different people: managers, presidents, CEOs, vice presidents, directors, non-directors, everything. People love to tell you on how busy they are. I call them workaholic martyrs. Okay. Have you ever met the person who's always telling you, oh my goodness, I'm so busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing so, and it's almost they wear it on their sleeve as a badge of, I'm such an important person because I'm so busy that I don't have time to follow up with you or do what I said I was going to do. And they're called workaholic martyrs. And they want you to praise them for being so busy. Well, here in this presentation, I'm going to drop a truth bomb on all of you. Okay. If when you're dealing with some of the most successful people in the world, people and heads of companies and stuff, everybody's busy. The question is, people make time to do the things that are really important to them. So when I see a workaholic martyr, I don't see somebody as super successful. I see somebody as unsuccessful. You want to know why? It's because they haven't taken stuff off their plate that is less important, and they're overcommitted. You know, they always say, if you want to get a job done right, give it to a busy person because they know how to manage their time. So don't be impressed by people who say, I'm so busy, I haven't got any sleep, I'm working a lot. It's like, well, you're not managing your time effectively. So get out of here. You just want praise. So here's what I helped Brian to learn how to say no to your advisor. And I gave him a great example, and I'm going to share this all with you. Imagine you had a friend, okay? And your friend asks you to go to the movies and say, hey, Tim, hey, can we go to the movies? And you're so busy and you got homework to study for. And you say, hey, hey, Mohammed, I would love to go with you, but man, I don't think I can go, man. I have a test coming up on Monday that I really need to study for. And what do you think Mohammed would say? Come on, Tim, it's just 2 hours. You just come along with me. Because I was wavering, because I said, I don't think, I probably can't go. What was I really communicating to him? Convince me to want to do what you wanted me to do. And this is what happens to a lot of people, that they feel bad. But what I was teaching Brian that I want to teach all of you, there's 4 steps to really saying no. Okay. The first step is you want to thank somebody for the request. Hey, Mohammed, you know what? Thank you so much for asking me to go see that movie with you. I really love to see that movie. However, I definitely cannot see it with you this weekend. So there's no ambiguity. You don't have to dance around. It's just flat. It's final. And then you give the reason why. The reason why I can't go with you to the movies is I'm committed to study all this weekend for my test that's coming up. Now, some people can be very good and give good reasons why people can't do something, and that's okay. But here's how to take it to the next step. Some people who are really worried about what other people think about them, they feel bad, right? Oh man, I know he really wanted to see that movie with me. But you can still be supportive and help that person, but from a distance, okay? You'd say, well, thanks so much for Mohammed for asking me. I definitely can't go. I'm committed to studying this weekend. Hey, have you asked Lisa or Tanya or Kimberly or any of these other people, Jonathan, Jason, whoever, to go with you? I think they would love to be able to see it. So you're like, oh, no, I never thought about that. Or, oh, I was going to ask you first, and then I was going to ask them. Okay, good luck. I hope you enjoy the movie. Because you can be empathetic and respect their idea and concern, or you can basically help them in some way. Now, sometimes there are people that take that helping to the next level, and they're like, let me find a person for you. Let me reach out to them to see if they're busy. And it's like, no. Don't take on all that responsibility. You can give them suggestions. You might say, hey, you know what? I don't know about this. You might want to check out here. Good luck. And wash your hands of it and just walk away. Otherwise, you might get sucked into somebody. Love people making their problems your problems. So anybody of you who are listening to have a big heart like me and want to help anybody, you have to protect yourself, from yourself, from actually caring too much. So I hope this resonates with some of you. Okay, so those are the 4 steps to say no. So then I want to ask all of you, and let's bring it back to the group. Well, actually, let me go back. Let me tell you what happened with Brian. So we went over these things. We're going to do an activity and exercise. We did it, but guess what? He was unable to do this. He was able to take talk to his advisor and asked him, following this 4-step process, hello, advisor. I want to thank you so much for asking me to take on the role as president, because you know what? You asked me to do it. I have a lot of experience, but I want to definitely tell you, I can no longer serve as president of this organization. And the reason why is I'm overcommitted with responsibilities. However, I do want to help you and help the organization. I do want to work over this next week or 2 to find a replacement for me. And once we find that replacement, I will train them so that the organization doesn't suffer. Is that okay with you? What are your thoughts? And I said, Brian, if you say that to your advisor, what do you think he would say? And he's like, oh, I think he would be loving it. I think he'd be really happy. And I'm like, yes. And actually, that's a sign of a good leader. You'd think that you don't want to disappoint him, but that would actually turn into a great reference. Wow, look how responsible he is. Look how responsible Brian is, knowing his bandwidth, not leaving the organization, without somebody to help run it. This is the sign of very strong leaders that I want you to all pick up. Okay. So I want to ask all of you, what were some of your suggestions? I know a lot of you are busy. You have school, you might have work, you have family obligations. Hey, Andre, good seeing you. What are the different tools and action steps that you do in order to have effective time management? Please share in the chat or raise your digital hand or share. I love to hear your thoughts. Any tips? Best time management advice? Okay, Casey, you wrote planning ahead of time. Yes, absolutely. Sitting down and figure out, okay, what do I need to do either today or this week? Fatima, absolutely making to-do lists. That is actually something I used to do, which helped me in college. Is how many of you have all these different ideas, and just writing all the ideas down as your to-do list just alleviates so much anxiety and stress. It's like, maybe I don't have to worry about it on my head. Now it's on the paper. Okay. And again, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name, Dainma. I feel for me, I recently now became obsessed with calendar organizing. Yes, we're going to talk about that. Very important. There's a line that I'm going to go over with you. And here's what it is. I'll kind of give you a preamble. You live by the calendar or die by the calendar, right? And we'll talk more about that. So thank you so much for that. Prioritization. Okay, yes, having all these tasks and knowing, hey, there's some tasks that I really want to do that makes me feel really excited to do them, but it may not be the most important task. So we're going to actually do that in our activity in a little bit. Something I'm still working on. Understand, Kobe, set up calendars with alerts. Absolutely. And yes, Brian, you really resonate with this story, right? It's not about you, but it most could be you, right? Or sounds the same name, Brian, right? That's really funny. Fatima, I add errands on the calendar and reminders. Again, great. And if I don't get to them by the deadline, I do my very best to do a check mark, especially if it's a priority. All right, great. All great, very tips of time management that I love. I'm now going to share with you what I believe, managing people, etc., what I think are the most important 3 time management tasks. Okay, so what's the first one? The first one is anything you do, always assume double. Okay, what do I mean by that? For example, let's just say you have a task that you think you need to do. Now, in your mind, you think, hey, you know what? That probably takes 30 minutes to do. And guess what? You may, in fact, be accurate that it only takes you 30 minutes to do that. However, this is what a common mistake may happen. That may take 30 minutes if you could shut out the world, could focus completely, not receive any distractions, had your phone off, but that's not the real world, okay? The real world has things coming at you. You're wanting to type up this email, this proposal, ring, ring. Oh, your mom's calling. Oh no, now I'm feeling hungry. Let me get a drink. Oh, then I have a conversation that took a lot longer than I expected. So all these different distractions, and all of you as students know this. Imagine where you guys say, hey, you know what? I have a paper due tomorrow. I'm going to finish it tonight. I'm going to type it all up. Guess what happens? You work on the paper and you realize, oh man, this paper takes a lot longer than I really anticipated. Now I'm pulling an all-nighter, sipping on caffeine, trying to finish up, because guess what? I didn't have proper time management skills. I assumed it would take me maybe 3 hours from 7 to 10 o'clock at night, but what in fact, it actually took me 6 hours. So I was up until like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. So all of you know this. But now that you know this, well, what are some of the action steps that you can put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen? You always assume double. Anything you add to your calendar, double it, because it will take longer than expected, okay? And the second principle is live by the calendar, die by the calendar. Now, for some people, you do this and you're doing it very well, good for you, okay, great. This is a nice refresher. Other people, again, this might be a minority of you who maybe have your own personal planner that you're using, great. Other people say, I don't like a calendar because I feel like I don't even look at it all the time. And so I'll just put all those things on there and then I'll forget it. Well, or some people, you might feel like it's restriction, like a freedom. And like, now I have to schedule my whole day, Tim, like, oh my goodness. And I'm going to tell you, listen, I live by the calendar and I die by the calendar, because if you are to be a successful leader, you have to manage your time. And it's actually, the calendar doesn't provide you restriction or loss of freedom. It actually does the opposite. It actually provides you even more freedom. So let me give you an example. So when I first did this training back in February 11, 2021, I kept this picture because this was an actual snapshot of my calendar on that day. At 5 o'clock, I'm in the morning and I'm feeding the animals. Now, notice it says from 5 to 5:30, I'm feeding the animals. Why is it that when it only takes me 5, 10, 15 minutes tops? The reason why is I'm following the principles that I learned before. Always assume double. Things take a lot longer than anticipated. So you're seeing this right here in my calendar. Then I'd work out, I'd take garbage. Listen, taking down the garbage doesn't take, half an hour, maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes. But guess what? There are times that I took out the garbage and guess what? Raccoons got into the garbage, made a whole mess. I didn't, anticipate that. But if I budgeted my time, 15 minutes, I would have been behind in my whole entire schedule, okay? Then I start off the morning doing some journaling, some spiritual reading, work on my project. I still have some times and breaks to schedule meetings, but this provides me freedom. So that's when people say, oh, I want to go to the park. I want to do something. Well, guess what? Block that whole schedule off and now you can have the time that you want. So again, having your calendar provides freedom. Make the association. Freedom, freedom, freedom with calendar, not restriction, restriction, restriction. Okay. The next thing is this: always schedule follow-up. Now here, why do I mention this as part of a time management exercise? Well, listen, I'm assuming that all of you are leaders. Maybe you're in positions of leadership. You plan to be in positions of leadership. Well, you have a team of people, right? People you ask to do stuff. Well, one of the biggest things that I realized is that people are terrible with time management. People make promises that they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and maybe they do X and they never do Y or Z. And it's cause of a lot of frustration around the world for people to say, why don't people do what they said that they're going to do? Well, guess what? You can get mad, you can get angry, right? But as a famous philosopher once said, the cause of all frustration is over-optimistic notions of how things and people should be. I'm going to say that one more time. The cause of all frustration is over-optimistic notions of how people and things should be. So what I did as a successful manager, and I say that because I got feedback from my teams, is I already knew that they were busy. I'd ask them to do something, but I would do things to make sure that things got done. So I would tell them verbally what they needed to do. I would send them an email of what they needed to do. I would actually put a deadline in my calendar and I would add them to my calendar. So nobody could ever say that I didn't follow up with them. And so what I will do is I will put notes in my calendar. I need to follow up with this person. So if you're going to get tasks done or give tasks to other people, understand that they need multiple reminders. And that's how you can ensure your own time management, but other people's time management. Okay. All right. I love some of the comments. Yasir and Estelle. So true. All right. So now we're going to do an activity. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to post a link in the chat. Now, what this link is right here, this is an access to a Google Excel spreadsheet. It's a view-only spreadsheet. So you can click on it, and then you can do file download, and you download this spreadsheet, and then you can actually edit it in real time. Okay. And we're going to do an activity. And I'll share it with my screen so that you can do it. I hope everybody can see you've signed out, signed back in. All right, so this is what, does everybody see that? What on the first tab of this spreadsheet is the instructions. But what I really want you guys to do is go to the second tab, duties and responsibilities. Now you can erase this, whatever you want. And so ignore column 2, ignore column 3. All we need to do right now is we're going to do a maybe 2-minute activity, maybe 3 minutes, depending on, you'll let me know if you're finished. I want you to imagine your week, okay? And I want you to brainstorm and just do a mind dump of everything that you have on your plate, right? Whether it's, okay, school, that's obvious. Homework, that's obvious, work. But what is all the other stuff that you do? Start thinking about what you do on the weekends. Start thinking about what you do at night. Okay, so here are some examples. You get ready in the morning, you eat breakfast, you commute to work, wash dishes, you park, study. So just start adding them, all right? Just do that right now. Okay, don't worry about any other columns. I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes, okay? And if you're having problem with this document, don't worry about it. Open up any blank spreadsheet. And again, or if you don't have that, a piece of paper, and just mind dump of all the different things you do. Okay, 2 minutes, go right now. Really rack your brain. Visualize what you do on the weekends. Visualize what you do at night. Think about friends, family members, everything. Your responsibilities, extracurricular activities, working out, sleeping, all that stuff. All right, I'm going to give you about another minute. If you're done, reply in the chat, done with all your brainstorm, okay? So that I can end early if a lot of people are still finishing up. And for some of you, it might be like I just saw Fatima, right? You wrote down chores, right? That might be a whole big thing, but are there separate chores that you do, right? Something may be vacuuming, something might be washing dishes. You know, you can, the more specific you get with this exercise or activity of different tasks that you do, the better it's going to be. Thanks, Kimberly. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes. All right. So now some of you probably have more list of stuff that you can do, but for the sake of time for this training, I want to make sure that we can keep moving forward, because you can always go back and add more stuff to this. Okay. The next column is, on average, how many hours per day do you need to do that task? Okay. Now this might get complicated, because you might say, well, what if I work out on let's just say on Mondays and Wednesdays? Like, all right, that might be 2 hours. So you just write down 2 hours, okay? Because when you do that activity, it takes you about 2 hours. All right. Now, some of you might say, well, column 2 is about how many hours per day is that activity. What if it takes me 15 minutes? What if it takes me a half an hour? Well, because this is on a spreadsheet, and I did that on purpose, is because it really helps you to put down things. If they're 15 minutes, you write 0.25. If it's half an hour, it's 0.5. If it's 45 minutes, it's 0.75, because look what you can do. Once you start doing this and you want to say, well, how much activity in a given day do I really do? You can highlight it all, and then look at the bottom, it will add a sum. Okay. Or when you're done, you could actually put in a formula, right? Where you put equals sum of, look at it, already wanted to calculate for you. That's why I love, Google spreadsheets. So don't do the sum yet. Just mind dump right now. I'm going to give you a minute. How long does each activity actually take you? Don't write minutes, write point something hours. Go. One more minute. Thirty more seconds. Five, four, three, two, one. Okay. So now that, again, you still might be done. You can always come back to this later. Now we're going to really figure out, on average, how long does that task take in a given week? And this is what I really love about spreadsheets. If you do that activity every day, you could actually put in a formula, like right here where it says 56. I could do this number times 7, and boom, it does the math for me, which I think is really cool. But for example, what if you work out maybe twice a week, right? So it's an hour and a half twice a week. Well, you could just double it, right? You could just write 3, or you could do 1 point equal sign 1.5 times 2. Boom, 3. Again, whatever works for you. Just on average in a given week, how long does that take you? Okay. I'm going to give you another minute to do that. Go. Thirty more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 time. Okay. So now we have one more column to fill out, but I wanted to show you in this presentation to explain this before we do it. Okay. And remember, I did this activity with Brian, which was the student leader who was super overcommitted. Okay. Now, column 4 is you wrote down all the different things that you have on your given plate, right? What is the task? On average, how long it takes you per day? On average, how long it takes you per week? But what about how important is this? Now, here I'm going to talk about something which is prioritization. Now, when you go into the business world, there's a different way in which they look at prioritization. I'm going to explain it to you right now. Okay. In the business world, they divide every single activity down into 3 different categories. Okay. Number 1 is it an immediate business need? Okay. That's the most important priority. Number 2, is it a significant business enhancement? Or 3, is it a nice to have? So now let me give you a perfect example. Okay, let's just say you're in a business and what ends up happening is you're a salesperson, right? You're calling different people to sell whatever product. An immediate business need might be, I need to call that person, okay? Because if you don't call them, you're not going to have any business, okay? A significant business enhancement might be, well, every time you talk to a client, they want to learn more information. Maybe you have a PDF info sheet that you email them, right? Well, you already have one, but maybe you could make that info sheet a lot better. Okay, so you really want to make time and make some changes and stuff like that. That would be a significant business enhancement. And then the last thing might be nice to have, right? What if, or let me actually go through another example. Okay, what if you're maybe making a video showing this product or service would be a significant business enhancement, and maybe making a flyer or an editing of the helmet may be a nice to have. So do you see how you can categorize these things into an immediate business need or a nice to have? Now, here's the problem with most people. I like editing a flyer. That seems like a lot of fun. I'd rather do that than make a phone call and try to sell somebody something. But that's what a lot of people do. They do the stuff that's interesting, fun, and exciting, but it's not important. It's a nice to have. My boss would always say, Tim, that's a great idea, but is this a real needle mover? Meaning, will this make a really significant difference? Because anybody has an idea. Well, that's the problem with people and how they're going throughout their life. So another way to look at things is in terms of priorities, you have to dial them back to, is it very important, important, or somewhat important? And the reason why I gave those 3 distinctions, notice how they have the keyword important in all of them. Everything that you're doing on your schedule is important to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. Working out, hanging out with your friends, eating, sleeping, all these things are important. But we need to go back and really think about and actually making a distinction between these. Is it really an immediate business need, or is it a nice to have? So what I want you to do is I want you to give you about 2 minutes. Okay, go back to that spreadsheet and write down, is it a 1, 2, or 3? Okay, and use those terms. So I'm going to give you about let's just say a minute and a half, and if anybody needs more time, put in the chat they're done, or I'll check after a minute and a half. Okay, let's do this activity again. Very, very important. Go now. Excellent. Kimberly's done. Thank you. All right, one more minute. If you finish, let us know. All right. Now, again, we don't have time to do the full activity. Again, I just wanted to give you a kind of starting, with this exercise. If you really want to have a breakthrough in your time management, it's really going to take time to actually do this exercise to the best of your ability. So once you start prioritizing each one of your tasks, then you're going to start to notice, hey, how many immediate business needs do I have? How many three priorities do I have? Now, again, when it comes to you being a high performer, and when I became a manager and you start dealing with a lot of different high level executives, there's almost like this reason to basically say, well, if my boss asks me to do something, how do I do it? How do I say no, right? They're my boss, they're my manager. Well, guess what? Not all bosses and managers are really good at managing people, right? And prioritization and tasks. They may be very high productive people, but maybe that's what moved them up to become a boss. But managing people takes a different skill. So whenever I had a president or high C level executive say, hey, Tim, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, right? But if I'm already working on these projects, I say, hey, okay, great. I can definitely do it, because the answer is I definitely can. The question back to your boss, if you are swamped and you're asking, when do you want that completed by? And they're saying, oh, I need it done tomorrow or today. Well, you have to let them know to say, well, listen, right now, today, I was working on these high priorities, these immediate business needs. Do you want me to take this off my plate and focus? Is this what you're asking me to do? Is this a priority? And you want me to take that off and do what you want me to do? Sometimes your boss will say, yes, definitely. Thanks for letting me know. Yes, this is more important. Or they would say, oh my goodness, no, what you're doing is more important than this task. Maybe you can do this tomorrow. So learning how to shuffle these priorities is the secret to success in managing your time. Now, if you want to accomplish more, get less threes on your plate and do more ones and twos. Okay, this is how you're going to accomplish more. Now, the other activity that you can do is, besides taking threes off your plate and doing more ones and twos, the other thing you could do is get it off your plate completely by asking somebody else to help you out with this, right? To delegate. Again, you're going to have to learn how to be very productive. And once you're very productive, you have to learn to help delegate to other people. So what are the different things that you can take off your plate? Now, some of you might be saying, well, Tim, I'm doing everything on my plate. I don't know how I can accomplish anymore. I'm going to tell you, the only people who I believe have a legitimate excuse about their time are people who are students, full-time students, work full-time, and have a family, and doing all those three things. That to me is, wow, they're really busy their time. Like, asking them to take on a lot of other stuff is very challenging. But even in those types of situations, I've seen people like that, and they're like, Tim, I don't have the ability to take care of my health because I'm working, I'm going to school, and have to take care of my family. And I say, well, it's time for you to start asking for help, right? And that's what this bonus column is on this exercise. What are some of these activities that you can ask other people? Maybe ask your children to help you. Okay, you wash dishes. Maybe it's time you ask your partner to start doing those dishes. Maybe it's asking more from your family members, or, trying to combine activities together, socializing and taking care of your kids. I don't know, whatever it may be, but please take the time to do this activity and see, out of all these things in your plate, where can you delegate tasks out. Okay. And there's a lot of you have probably heard of Tony Robbins. I'm gonna show you some slides that talks about him and best practices. And one of the best things that he did, what he taught me from all his books and literature, was do things on your plate, or do activities or tasks that accomplish multiple priorities. So if you're an individual like me, I prioritize work over socialization all the time, right? My wife sometimes gets worried, like, Tim, don't you have a social life? Like, don't you care about visiting your friends and your family? And I'm like, listen, I prioritize what's really important to me, but I do need some socialization time. So I love working out. So I found a way to combine both of those things. So I had a buddy who I used to work with who, we went our separate ways in terms of different companies. He lived on Long Island. And I said, listen, I loved working out with him. What if I could socialize and work out at the same time? So I reached out to him. We started working out together. And then with COVID, we now connect and work out together on, the phone, doing Zoom or FaceTime calls. And guess what? We talk about work, we talk about movies, and we all do that while we're exercising. So there's always new creative ways in which you can find ways to maximize your time of either taking stuff off your plate or combining two things into one. So I hope that's helpful for some of you. So again, for the sake of time, I want to continue with the presentation, but that's definitely a category that we can that you can do offline, right? Delegate tasks or combine them. All right. So now we come to the last half an hour of this presentation, right? We talked about the biggest challenge leaders face, which is time. And so now we've done an activity, which you're starting to really recognize where all your time is going and what priorities are your different activities and if stuff you can do to take off your plate. We did it in a very scientific, almost engineering type way. Now let's talk about mastering success habits. So there's a famous book and a famous author called Tim Ferriss, and he wrote this book called Tools of Titans. What are the tactics and routines and habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers? So if you're like me that wants to be a world-class leader, high-class performer, then I need to know what the most successful people in the world are doing, okay? And so what are their habits? And I'm going to not share all of the habits that they talked about in this book, but I'm going to share with you the most important ones that at least that I took away. You can read the book on your own, okay? And there's this famous quote from Aristotle: "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." And so what are the habits of the most successful people? And it may surprise you, or maybe actually you would have already known these, but it's time that you recognize them and start doing them in case you're not doing them. Okay. The first one that really surprised me was do a gratitude journal every day. And I'm like, journaling? What are you talking about? I'm not going to write about all the things that happened in my day today or yesterday. That seems like a ridiculous waste amount of time, right? Actually, no. There's in this book, they talked about all the most successful people journal. And there is something that people can do called the 5-minute journal. And it's this gratitude journal, and it asks you a series of questions each day. And you start off your day with these questions. And guess what? The moment I do these things, I have a more successful day. I have a happier day. I feel much more accomplished. And I'm going to share with you what the questions are so that you don't even have to go out and actually buy a journal, a gratitude journal. I'll tell you the questions. You can use it on pieces of paper or a regular college ruled notebook or wide ruled notebook. Okay. And so there was this study that was done, and I just want to share with you at the bottom. Daily gratitude journal leads to better sleep, reduction in physical pain, greater well-being, and better ability to handle change. That means doing a gratitude journal makes you more resilient. So I just love that. And so if anybody of you want better sleep, happier, all that other stuff, then do this one thing every day. The second thing was exercise. And I actually included an image because, again, we have all these different types of people that might be listening to this call. And some people say, well, what if you're disabled? What if you can't walk or whatever? I'm like, even in this image, you have an opportunity to do some upper body exercises, right? Lift some little tiny weights. It's important that you stimulate your heart, that you work those muscles and do some deep breathing, do a little bit of sweating. It is very, very important for your success. They say that I've heard about this. I haven't read the studies that exercising, at least once a day is the equivalent of taking one antidepressant in terms of the effects on the body and in terms of stress hormones and all that stuff. So I think that that's very, very important. Now, again, I didn't mention this in my other previous trainings, but I wanted to include it. Also, nutrition and sleep. I'm fascinated by the studies now that are being done on who are the happiest people on Earth, who are the longest living people on Earth, the centenarians, the people who live over 100 years old. Well, guess what? The truth is, the diets have been done. It has been studied. The people who live the longest are people who have and eat more vegetables, more fruits, more legumes, and eat less meat and less dairy. I would love to go into a whole presentation about that, but I don't think I'm sharing anything that's shocking of you. And then the last thing is sleep. If you don't get your sleep, then you're screwed, right? I don't know if you're all, like me. There's times that I've been so tired and tried to drink caffeine to stay awake. And then suddenly I'm trying to do a task and I'm so tired. And to do this task almost took me like 10 minutes to do. But if I would have slept well, I could have probably done the task in 2 minutes. So prioritizing sleep is a must. Okay. I remember I was trying to study for an exam and I tried to read the book. I was falling asleep, had to reread it several times. I'm like, I'm just going to take a nap. I took a nap. I woke up like an hour later and then I'm like, oh, I need to study. And I read the book after I had taken my nap. And oh my goodness, the page came alive. Everything I was reading, it was like I was watching a movie. I'm like, this is so cool. And I remembered everything and aced that quiz. So again, it's the importance of prioritizing sleep. And then the last thing is meditation. Okay. There's a whole new field of mindfulness that is becoming more and more popular, that people realize that if they meditate, they are going to be more successful. If you asked some of the biggest celebrities, Katy Perry, all these high performers, they practice meditation. There's so many different types of meditation. One of them is called transcendental meditation. Now, for those of you who may have a religious background, guess what? You may do prayer. Okay, great. That is another form of meditation. It's quieting your mind, connecting to whatever God, universal consciousness, whatever term you like to use. Well, then great. That's you connecting. And they find that actually makes you happier, more successful, calmer. You get more ideas. You're less stressed out. And listen, you may only do it for 5 minutes a day, maybe 15, 30 minutes, whatever you can do, you do it. Okay. It makes a big difference. I'll even share with some of you, there is a very good meditation that I used when I was starting to meditate. And it's about like an 8 or 9 minute meditation. It's called the guided white light meditation. I'll put it in the chat before the end of this training. And it's 8 minutes and it starts off with relaxing your body and you're feeling in your toes or feeling relaxed and you imagine white light hitting you. It's amazing, and if you're like me and when you're starting out meditation and you're probably sleep deprived, whatever, chances are you may fall asleep. That's okay, because maybe that's what your body needed. And so just remember to set an alarm to wake up so you don't miss any important things that you need to do. Okay. So here is the 5 questions to ask yourself on the gratitude journal. Okay. Now, remember, you don't have to buy a gratitude journal, but the journal that I showed you, that's the one I ordered on Amazon. I have a bunch of copies. I just buy, they're like $5 or $7. But like I said, people recommend when you do gratitude journal that you do it in the morning and you do it at night. But listen, in all of my trainings that I have done, I don't believe in giving you advice if I'm not actually doing it myself. So I have not been doing journaling in the morning at night. What works for me is I do mine in the morning only. So instead of saying, reflections at the end of the day, I say, what were my reflections yesterday? So I'll really reflect on what happened to me. What can I do? How can I make tomorrow better? Right. Which is kind of today. Right. What am I grateful for? Gratitude is the right attitude, and it can transform you. And anybody who's like worried about money, where you're at in your career, anybody at this point has a choice to either be happy or miserable. You can always look to your right and say, how come this person has more than me, or more money, or a better job, better promotion? Or you can look to your left and you're like, well, guess what? There are people who don't have opportunity to go to school. There are people that don't have a roof over their head. So you need to focus on gratitude on what you have instead of comparing yourself to other people on what you don't have. And that will help you put you in a better state and help you become much happier. The next thing is your to-do list. What do you want to accomplish today? If you did X, Y, and Z today, how would that make the day amazing? Now, here is what I do for my day. I divide my day up into categories. I used to do career, personal, health, wellness, physical. Now I just do two categories. What's my career and what do I want to do personally? And I write all the things that I want to have accomplished. Career, I need to do this training. I need to call these people. For personally, like I want to exercise. I want to take care of this for my family or whatever it may be. And that's how I do it. But then I say, if I could only do one of those things, okay, what would I do? And that is the most important priority. And you put a star behind it, or you put a check mark like some of the other participants have. What do you do to make that the most important thing? And you circle it, right? And you say, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to check emails. I'm not going to check Instagram. I'm not going to do anything else until I do that first. There's a famous success speaker by name of Brian Tracy. And he wrote a book called Swallow the Frog. And I love that concept. And it basically says what prevents people from being the most successful is they don't do the most important things when they start off the day. They start responding to email, doing all this other kind of stuff. So if the most important thing of the day is swallowing a frog, then do that first thing in the morning. I know you hate it. I know you don't want to do it, but swallow it, get it done. Because otherwise you're just going to have to be staring at it and never gets done. So that's what I do. So I don't even check my email in the morning and none of that. You accomplish that task first, because guess what happens when you start doing this habit? Your list of yes, Fatima, eat the frog. The list will become so long that you will never accomplish all the tasks that you want to get done in a day. But if you at least accomplish the most important task, well, guess what? You're ahead of 90% of the people who procrastinate. Okay. And then the last thing are affirmations. The most important 2 words in the English language is I am. Okay. And for example, if you start saying, I am sick, I'm sick, if you start, guess what? You're going to start to feel sick. We have the power to manifest things in our lives by the self-talk that we said to ourselves. And if you write down affirmations to start off your day, they will put you in that mindset. Okay. There's research in science. It's like, think about it as, have you ever learned a new word and you've never heard of this word before? And then suddenly you learn it. And now you hear everyone starting to use that word, like, oh my goodness, how did I, not know this before? It's because you weren't focusing on that. So if you want to focus on what you want to do in your life, it starts with your affirmations every day of saying, who are you being? Who are you want to vibrate at? What is the kind of energy, And so some of my affirmations, I am love, I am empowerment, I am fun. There's other ones that I use. I am the light, I am guided by the light, I'm protected by the light, I'm illuminated by the light, the light representing universal consciousness, God, whatever term you want to call it. These are the affirmations that I use. Use the affirmations that work for you, okay? But do that every day. All right, next, I'm giving you a bonus habit. So we talked about the 3 most successful habits, right? A gratitude journal, exercise. Well, I'd add sleep and nutrition is important, but exercise, and last, meditation. But here's a bonus one: Read. Okay, there's a famous quote, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are definitely readers. So what are the types of books you want to read? Maybe there's some positive books, some spiritual books that lift you up, your soul, like there's the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, whatever your religion background, maybe you're non-religious, just read some positive uplifting books, right? About hero's journey, biographies, learning about people that could inspire you, and read books about successful people or leadership books, self-help books. Again, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People to me is one of the most important leadership books that you could read. Listen, it's tough to read. Like I call this the PhD of leadership because every time I've read it about 3 times, and every time I've read it, I've learned new things because it's so dense of material. But read the books. And if you say, Tim, I don't have time to like read, and I'm like, do 1 minute, 1 page, whatever you can do. So here's a challenge for you. Okay, we're going to do this in 5 minutes. Okay, this is probably beyond this last activity that we did. You need to create your ideal schedule. Okay, what I'm asking you to do is I want you to be your own superhero of a superhero schedule. Okay, and so what you're going to do is on this spreadsheet, I want you to insert on the last tab. Let me show you where that tab is. Okay, everybody should be able to see my screen. All right, going back to this exercise, look at this last tab, create the ideal schedule. Notice I created a spreadsheet and had all the times. And what I want you to do is, when would you want to start sleeping? Go to bed, put sleep, and then like right here, like maybe it's 10, and you type that in here, and then you can actually drag that down like this. Look how easy that is. But here's what I want you to do. Here's the challenge. Okay, we only have 5 minutes to do this exercise, so I really want you to focus on the morning and on the weekends. Okay, of what you want to do, because chances are you guys have school, you have work, that's probably already given. It's really the mornings and weekends that I want you to focus on. I want you to somewhere put half an hour of habits of success somewhere on your calendar. Now, what do I mean by habits of success? I want you to put 5 minutes for journaling, 5 minutes for exercise, 5 minutes for meditation. You're like, Tim, that's only 15 minutes. You said half an hour. Yes, because if you remember from the beginning of my presentation, always have a buffer, always assume double. Okay. So again, maybe you might do gratitude journal for 5 minutes and then it turns into 10 minutes, right? You need to actually put that time. Oh, and Francine, I just noticed your comment. Sleep is your problem. Listen, it's everybody's problem. Okay, I just sent out an email to the leadership organization Electus Society that I created, and I talked about sleep, and I said, if you need an alarm to wake up in the morning, chances are you don't have enough sleep. Okay, so what I wanted to do is do this exercise. Okay, what would be the ideal time you'd want to go to sleep? If you say, I want to be in bed by 11, set your alarm for 10:30, and reminder, get yourself in bed. You might get into bed and might not even be tired. Well, guess what? Read a book. That can put you right to sleep, even if it's a self-help book. But we don't have the whole 5 minutes to do this exercise. Just do it for 2 minutes, okay? I'm going to set the alarm. Focus on what would your ideal schedule be on the weekend, in the morning, or at night, okay? Give you 2 minutes. Go right now. One more minute. 30 more seconds. Five, four, three, two, one, time. Okay. Now, again, just because we're limited on time doesn't mean that's the end of the exercise. Once we finish tonight, finish this exercise, complete any missing information. But the moment that you flush out your superhero schedule, what I want you to do is then put it on your calendar, right? Again, the whole spreadsheet is to create that ideal. And then you transfer it over. All right. It will really help. And remember to block off that time for your success morning routine. Again, you might be success evening routine. It doesn't matter to me as long as you're doing it every day. I'm just sharing what I do and what works for me. Okay. So in the last 10 minutes that we have, let's talk about leadership and taking it to the next level. So for the sake of time, there is a lot of talk about what are all the most important leadership qualities. Is it, values, finding your purpose, passion, principle, humility, all these different things, right? All these are different attributes to describe leaders. But I'm going to tell you my opinion on what is the most important leadership quality that all of you must have if you are to be a successful leader. Okay, you ready for it? Here it is. It is integrity. Okay. Now, most people hear that. You're like, oh, yeah, I've heard that term. When I learned about integrity when I was in college or went to different leadership conferences like this, I would always understand the same thing. It was like, oh, integrity is about moral uprightness. It's about doing what's right when nobody else is looking. Okay. Having high integrity. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say when it comes to integrity. But I'm going to give you a different definition of integrity. And it's this. There's two parts. It's not only about being honest and being moral, it's about being complete. Okay. The quality of being whole, sound, and complete. The quality of being undivided and unimpaired. And I have this little cartoon that really demonstrates this. It said, voters demand integrity from the election system. What does that mean? That means that when you have an integrity of an election system, it means it's whole. It's complete. It's not impaired. It means when you vote for somebody, it's counted for. Okay. That's what people expect of their voting system. And I love this line. It says, as they read that little news line, who knows, maybe someday we'll demand it from the people we put into office. What does that mean? How many times do politicians make promises and never follow through with them? They promise this. Integrity means doing what you said you're going to do, right? It's unimpaired. It's being complete. And so I never knew about this word integrity when it comes to leadership until I did a leadership program called the Leadership Forum with an organization called Landmark Worldwide. It's one of their headquarters is in New York City. And this forum is a 3.5-day conference, and you can all learn about it if you're interested in it. They even do them via Zoom, and they do some in person, but it's a life transformational program. And so I did it. And one of the first topics that they say, if you want to transform your life, the first thing that you need to learn about is this keyword of integrity. And so we learned about it. It was very transformational. I loved it so much. It transformed my relationship with my wife and everything, that I ended up doing their advanced programs. And one of them was like a leadership program where it was 4 months of doing this leadership program. And they went even to more detail about what leadership means and what integrity means. And so they basically said that there's 5 key components to integrity. And it's doing what you know to do, doing what you said you were going to do, doing a job completely, doing it as it was expected to be done, doing it as it was meant to be done, and doing it on time. Oh my goodness, that's a whole other level of integrity that I didn't know about. And so how could I remember all that Well, there was a famous disc jockey. Those of you who might be a little bit older, non-traditional students know of her, Casey Kasem. He was this radio disc jockey who would always do the top 40 countdowns of the top songs. His name was Kasem. And so that's how I remembered this acronym of all the key components of integrity. It's Casey Kasem plus T, okay? And so this is how we need to operate as leaders. And I'll give you a perfect example of how this concept can be applied in your life. For example, me, I have to make a confession. I hate doing dishes, but that's one of my responsibilities in the household, right? My wife says, you do the dishes, but I hate doing them. And so suddenly I would do the dishes begrudgingly, and then I'd rinse them off, put them in the dishwasher, and the dishwasher would be full. And I would say, oh, dishwasher's full. I can't do these dishes because they're in the sink. But if I'm operating from integrity, doing dishes, doing what you know to do, doing what you said you would do, doing a job completely. Well, Tim, are you washing the dishes completely? No, not really. I'm kind of doing it half the job, right? Is it expected that when you do the dishes, there should be dishes in the sink? No, it's expected that you do them as it was meant to be done and doing it on time when you said you were going to be doing it. And so, oh my goodness, once I started applying this standard to everything in my life, holy moly, I can't tell you how many times I had broken integrity. Something as simple as, building a bookshelf for IKEA or something like that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the bookshelf. I build it. I leave a complete mess. I show my wife, hey, I've done the bookshelf. It's like, well, it's expected that you clean up. It's meant that you clean up. You can't just leave a mess. And I'm like, well, I just said I was going to do the bookshelf. Like, that's somebody else's problem. It's like, this is what everybody does all throughout their lives. So if you can operate on this level, you're going to be a much more successful leader. Now, here's the problem. It's really hard to be in integrity all the time with what you said you do and your promises. And you have to recognize that we're imperfect, right? I always like to say humans are perfectly imperfect, right? So when you screw up, what is something that you can do? It's called restoring integrity. You apologize for the broken commitment. You said you were going to email this person. You said you didn't do it. So you apologize, but then you say what actions or steps that you can put in place in the future. All right. What is the system? And I'm going to tell you right now, here are the 3 most common reasons why people break integrity. Here they are. They didn't put it in their calendar. They didn't set an alarm, and they didn't include a buffer. Okay. I had coaches that said, Tim, if you call me 1 minute later than you're supposed to do, you're out of integrity and I need you to restore integrity. And I'm like, whoa, isn't that a little intense? It's like, well, what kind of game are you playing? And so what I realized is I needed to set 5-minute alarms. Hey, SIRI, set an alarm for 2:55, PM, because I have a 3 o'clock meeting. Now, every day when I have meetings, I set alarms for myself because I can't trust myself to be in integrity. I put systems in place to make sure that I'm in integrity. And some people will set a 5 alarm and then they're still late the next time. It's like, oh man, what's a new system I have to put in place? Maybe I need a 5-minute and a 1-minute alarm. Okay, so these are all the things. You're late for work. Don't apologize and say, hey boss, I'm so sorry. I'm late for work. There was traffic. It's like, no, you're supposed to be at work at 9. You apologize. What system are you going to put in place? I left 15 minutes early. Now I'm going to leave 30 minutes earlier. That's a buffer. You have to anticipate. So again, these are all the different things. So just to recap, what did we learn in today's session? The biggest challenge leaders face is time. And how can you manage time? You have to prioritize, put all tasks into immediate business need, significant enhancement, and nice to have, and start getting rid of the nice to haves or reducing them down or delegating them to other people, right? If you're overcommitted. If you say yes too much, you have to learn how to say no, thank the request, give a definite no, give the reason, and try to help them. All right. Last, the success habits: journal, exercise, meditate, and read. And we talked about the most important leadership quality, integrity. It's being complete. It's doing what you know to do, doing what you said you would do, doing it completely as it was expected to be done, meant to be done, and on time. And if you screw up and you break your integrity, you apologize and you put a system in place. What's new actions to prevent that from happening in the future? All right. So just before I take any questions, I want to let you know I do additional trainings. I have a survey that if you're interested in any of these trainings, I'm going to give this feedback. I know that Jason's going to have his own survey that he's going to have as well. And so do both of them if you can. And if you fill out my survey, which is right here, I'm going to give you a free gift. Whenever you guys are going for job interviews and you want to know what kind of questions they're going to ask you, well, guess what? These are the 49 most common questions. So once you fill it out today or this week, I'll send you that whatchamacallit, the 49 questions. So thanks so much. That's our time. I'll take any questions that you might have. And I really appreciate, all that time that we shared. And I hope you gained some valuable insights. So any questions you might have, I'm happy to answer.
It looks like Fatima asked if you want to share your LinkedIn, Tim, if you have.
Sure. Let me pull it up right now and I'll post it in there.
So since everybody didn't chime up, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank you all for being here today and for participating. Tim, thank you so much. It's really inspirational, and I got a lot of comments in the side chat that people were telling me what they liked and how inspired they were. So thank you for sharing this knowledge. And I think a lot of us are going to put it to good use, including myself. My wife was in here for a while watching too. So it was like a family affair for a little while here. So I want to thank you, of course, for being here and taking the time out of your schedule to join us. And this may be the last that we're ever going to do in the virtual world, and then hopefully we'll have you come and meet the group in person in the near future.
I would love to do an in-person presentation, and I'm so glad your wife was able to do this presentation. I just have to give one confession. Do you know this term of integrity has transformed my relationship with my wife? We have less fights as a result because of this, because she'll ask me to do something and now she doesn't even have to do it. It's like, am I in integrity of not doing it? So all I have to do is, she's like, hey, you have to restore integrity. You said you were going to paint that cabinet. You haven't done it. I'm like, what system are you going to place? Oh man, I need to put it on my calendar. I need to set a buffer. I need to set an alarm. So I hopefully your wife can hold you accountable, Jason, in case you're dropping the ball, or you could reverse, right? Maybe she's dropping the ball.
It was great. It was a great message. I heard it and I thought it through, and I'm definitely going to have to think about things as I move forward. So thank you for that, Tim. And I want to thank all of you for being here, and for the folks who are going to watch the recording later. I just want to remind everybody, on the 23rd, we're going to have our Pass the Torch ceremony. It's the one night of the year where we get to celebrate all of you. I hope you'll all be there. We're going to have certificates ready for you. Diana's here. She's planning a big party for everybody with a DJ and $1,000 worth of food, whatever that means. And and tables with stars and all sorts of other stuff. So please come out on the 23rd and join us, and we look forward to seeing you there and celebrate you. And if for some reason I don't see you, for those of you who are graduating, wish you enormous amounts of success. I will be at both graduation ceremonies in the background because I'm on the committee. And for those of you that are going to continue, look, we go back to work right after graduation, right back into it. Volunteering during the summer in person, hopefully a lot. We'll probably do a mural, get out to the soup kitchens and the food pantries. And then back in the fall, we'll come back with our workshop series, and that'll be in person. Hopefully, some of you will be able to join us there, whether you're alumni or whether you're current members. So I look forward to that. Thank you again for all of your hard work, for all of your diligence, for being here, for going along with us as we continue in this virtual environment. And I'm really hopeful for the future. And Tim, thanks again. We look forward to seeing you. I know a lot of people jumped on because they wanted to see. I know Andre was here, and Leighton, and a couple of other folks who from working with them in the CUNY Malave Leadership Academy. A few others said they wanted to jump on, but they're a little busy at this time. So thanks for everybody who jumped on today.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy the warm weather. And next week is AIDS Walk. So let's get out there and walk together. Take care. Bye, everybody. See you soon.